This is the 68 Mercury Colony Park that we're going to work on the exhaust. So this is the bottom of the 68 Colony Park, and as you can see, it's got dual exhaust with a X crossover and C6 transmission. It's also got and let me put a light up here so you can see, but it's got an O2 sensor for MSD Atomic EFI. MSD got purchased by Holley a couple of years ago, and Holley kept their MSD's bolt-on EFI setup. MSD called it Atomic EFI, and but they did come out with a second version called Atomic 2, and I think that uses later programming or Holley programming, but it's pretty much very similar to the Atomic 1. So with this Atomic 1, it'll start up, it'll idle. Usually you have to start it more than once and give it some throttle to get it to run. And why I'm standing here looking at the oxygen sensor is because I'm wondering if the placement of it is in question, because they do say you want to have it anywhere from 10 degrees above horizontal, whether it's coming out this side or that side, and all the way up to about 45 degrees. Well, when I installed it, somehow I overlooked that, and it's in there vertical. Now I can understand why they wouldn't want it in the bottom, you know, of a pipe. I mean, obviously it's a ground clearance issue on this, but it can collect water and such. So I don't know if because it's vertical, if that creates some type of moisture issue, because after this sits, if you shut it off and let it sit for a little while, you know, whether it's maybe 10 minutes or an hour, when I go to start it, it will fire up. The RPMs will go up, come down, up, down, and then stall, like it just cannot find a smooth idle. And it's really annoying, because you have to drive with 2 feet to keep it from stalling. And once you've been driving for 5 or more minutes, it seems to have straightened itself out. But it's you know, it's pretty annoying. The other possibility is the oxygen sensor is right next to this seam where the manifold comes down and the pipe goes up against it. There's a possibility it might have a leak, and of course that is a big problem. So what I'm going to do is take the pipe off of there, and I'm going to move the bung for the O2 sensor, and I'm going to move it out to this side over here, where it's at an angle more that falls in with their parameters, and also and move it a little further back from where the seam is there, because I don't know if the transition between the internal diameter of the manifold versus the internal diameter of the pipe is a step, which I believe it is. I believe it is. There's some amount of step in there, and maybe that causes some type of turbulence or eddy current or something that will disrupt the reading of the oxygen sensor. So I'm going to move it, and hopefully that will allow it to stabilize the idle better on a restart. I have to undo both sides to get the one side off. Studs are way longer than they need to be on this side. Oh boy. Now, I don't know if we can see any of this, but if I don't know if this will focus. Well, it's hard to see, but and I don't think this is gonna focus in that close. But when I first took it off, it did look like there was water droplets around the outside of it. You know, around this area here, and maybe they were up inside as well, where you know, wherever it takes a reading. But it appears to have dried already. So maybe the water droplet issue, or maybe that's the issue. But I mean, it does look like it's all the way around the inside of the pipe. So I don't know why changing it from vertical to 45 would give it any improvement. But we're going to do what the directions say, and hopefully that works. Boy, this is kind of an elaborate connector. The lock is kind of elaborate for an O2 sensor. I'd say that's kind of beyond anything that's like normal stock stuff, except maybe some European cars would probably have some nonsense like this. But anyway. Probably be a better idea to break the thing loose while it was still bolted up. Well, I guess we'll have to set it back in place. There it is. Okay, there it is. Oh boy. It's a big ugly bunch of weld there for that bung, and that's not going to be pleasant to try and grind off of there, but that's just what we're going to have to do. So I'm going to drop part of the cross member. Well, not the cross member, but the exhaust hangers are connected to the cross member bolts. So they got to come apart here. Well, that got us a little bit. I don't know if it's enough. So we'll use the bridge jack on the lift to hold up the exhaust, because I got to take it apart over here at each hanger over here. Now it comes down in a controlled fashion, and nothing gets damaged. So we're going to cut this off of here, but I'm gonna take the camera away because I don't want any sparks to fly and hit the lens of the camera and ruin the camera. Okay, so I made the cuts and I got the O2 sensor bung off of there, and not too bad. You know, it's be able to fill that in with weld and clean this up and reposition it on the other side here, and hopefully that makes some type of difference with how this is going to run. Take this piece over to the grinder and get the excess weld off of it, and clean it up a bit, because I'm not going to weld it on like this. Something small like this, if I were just touching it up, I would hold it in my fingers, but being I'm going to be grinding it, it's going to be getting hot. I'm going to hold it in a pair of vice grips. Sounds like that bench grinder can use a set of bearings. Anyway, this was hex shaped before, and it's relatively close to being hex again. A little cleanup on the bottom will finish it off. Alright, so we're going to weld up the hole and then reconnect the pipe and find the best placement to put the best position for the new placement of the O2 sensor. Not too bad. It's not anywhere that anybody's really going to see it, but it's a solid patch. And just snip some of those little stray wires that are hanging on the inside, and it'll be good. Okay, let's connect this exhaust and see where that position is gonna... Oh, that's still a little warm. You know, I got the whole weight of the thing hanging down. Gotta trim those extra long studs on there before this goes back together for the last time. There we go. That's where it needed to be. Put the nuts back on this side so it's in its definite position. My noisy snap-on air ratchet, but boy, that's the best air ratchets out there. Here it is. Okay. I'll tell you, vertical is really the nicest position there. Anything else is really anything else is really like not the best position. There. Marked it with a Sharpie. Take it back apart, and using this angle drill with a step bit, we can bring it out to the 3/4 and then get it welded back up. Okay, I paused the camera while I used the air ratchet, but all done now. All right. Lower down that bridge jack to give a little more room over here. And yeah, that looks, I think it'll be okay. Can't say I'm happier with the placement, but or the position of it, because I think before the vertical position it was centered. It was you know, it wasn't conflicting with anything. It wasn't, the wire wasn't rubbing on anything. And you know, this sometimes they give you a chuck key that is just, you know, I ought to, while we're here, I ought to weld a T on it so that the darn thing can be tightened, because this chuck key is, I mean, boy, it's hardly better than a thumb screw. My vision's getting worse as I get older. You know, for the past 2 years, I've been having to squint really hard and take out the flashlight to read, read a menu or something. And, so long-term vision degradation is just, I guess, a natural process. Getting metal in the eye is degradation of eyesight and eyeball health that happens a little too quick. So it's always good to have some safety glasses. Whoops. See what I mean about having a good chuck key? Just don't squeeze the trigger while you're doing this. If you think you might, best to take away the air supply. I don't know if that's 3/4. I'm guessing that last step is probably 3/4. Well, hopefully it's not more than 3/4 because they call for 3/4. And okay, well, that looks good. And if you've never seen one before, we got a pneumatic vacuum. I'm guessing it uses the Venturi effect to, it's got a pretty powerful suction. Works really good. Get all those chips out of there. Okay, well, we'll weld in the bung. And then get everything put back together. I gotta say, sometimes it's a little more convenient to be on a 2-post lift, because it'd be a little easier if I were standing on this side of the pipe. Might touch this up a little more with the grinder. Alright, so touched it up with the grinder, held it against the wheel on the circumference of the wheel, and it made it a little cupped, which is good because it's going to fit on the pipe a little better. Got a little hot. I'm going to put some water on it and cool it off so I can hold on to it now. And that's about it. Find a good setting for the welder here. Little hanging hook got bent. There we go. Nice if they made a welding helmet that wasn't so darn bulky. Because getting underneath cars, you don't have much headroom. So if you know of a welding helmet that sits almost flush on somebody's head, that's what I need. Like I said, it'd be easier to have a two-post lift where I could get to this side of it. Actually, it came out pretty good. Better than before. It was globbed on before. It's a little bit nicer finish now. Alright, time to clean up these flanges. And I got a couple gaskets here that I'm hoping will fit. Let's see if they fit. Kind of an odd size. These aren't really the gaskets I wanted. I don't like fibrous gaskets on exhaust. They never seem to last. I gotta say my favorite header gasket, and I'll use them between exhaust manifolds as well, is the Percy's Seal for Good dead soft aluminum gasket. I've had those on engines for 15 years. Where prior, it seemed like a non-stop chasing game to keep after exhaust leaks of those fibrous gaskets that would blow out. And once I put those on, Never looked back. They they sealed up good or sealed up great, sealed up perfectly, and just last. You know, on a daily driver, You know, with a probably put, I don't know, probably 60, 70,000 miles on those gaskets, and never had to go back and tighten header bolts. Never any leaks, and they just work great. I use them on everything. Anything and everything that I can use them on, I'll use them. But they didn't seem to have them available like this. So I got these. They're supposed to be pretty resilient, and maybe down here it'll be okay. So let's put a flat stone across and see what it looks like. I don't know if that brightens things up at all. Certainly doesn't help me, but maybe it. It's got a circle almost all the way around, so it's not bad, but I think a little more elbow grease here will. Well, that's pretty good. It goes all the way around. So while it's wider on one side, it's at least going around. Not like the flange is cupped or something. So this should bolt up and seal. Be much nicer if they were ball and socket. You know, trying to get flat flanges to seal it seems like it's next to impossible sometimes. I think this one's maybe in a little better shape. Well, no, it needs a little work on the bottom. You might be able to see down here it's a little darker, and up here it's a little darker. You know, it's because when you bolt these down, it seems to want to pull these, where the bolt holes are, it wants to pull those in, and it makes it, the whole thing cupped like this. I'm thinking what I might do is take that whiz wheel and just try to grind just a little bevel off of each side where the bolt hole is. This way it doesn't try to make it stand off around the rest of it. I'll do that before I keep sanding, because it seems like sanding is just hitting these areas more than here. I mean, it's got a little ring where it's touching, but I think this is going to be, once a gasket wears a little bit, or you know, any sort of leak, the exhaust is going to work its way through, and the fibrous gasket's going to wear out. You know, they're kind of hard. They don't really seem to conform that well to any variation or very much variation in surface. So a little more sanding after I whiz wheel it. I mean, that's not going to take off a lot, but you know, it'll probably take a bit of sanding. Let's see how the lines come out with that. If I can keep this flat. Yeah, okay, good. So it hasn't really touched over here. So maybe that theory will work. If I bevel this back just a little bit, it might help sealing around this center area. And this is a diamond wheel. Got it from the Snap-on truck, and it's pretty good at removing metal. A regular cookie, you know, the tan Scotch-Brite pads that roll off, or yeah, I guess they're roll-locks, but that go on there. You know, they're good at taking away gasket material, but they wear down. This diamond wheel is quite a bit better at some metal removal, so you wouldn't really want to use this on taking gasket down on aluminum, because you're going to get too much material removal and probably end up warping the aluminum surface that should be flat for a gasket to seal. As for the manifold side, I'm probably going to leave well enough alone. These 427 Ford long cast iron headers are not cheap, and I don't really want to modify it. I think I'd rather get this to conform to the header than to try and get the header to conform to the pipe. Well, it's going to take a lot of rubbing, but change the direction of the scratches to really see where we're at. Be nice to just put it on a surface grinder, but I don't have a vise for the whole exhaust. Well, it is going, it does make a full circle, but it's got that little low area right there, but you know, that could be low by maybe a thou. And the gasket should have enough give for that. Maybe I'm being optimistic, I don't know. But we're gonna try it, put the new gaskets on, and you know, see if they leak or not. If they do, or if they don't, great. If they do, then might have to take it back apart and see if we can get it a little better. But I think for right now, that's gonna be, it'll be okay. We'll give it a try. All right, we'll check this side too. Back to the first side. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, it goes all the way around. But you know what? Let's bevel this side or the edges and see if we well, we'll try it. Being a righty, it was easier to do the other side. Darn drive-on lift. That looks pretty good. I think I'm gonna leave well enough alone with that. All right, so we'll put it together. A little bit of brake clean on a rag, because I did have some sealer on here before, some black RTV, and while that has worked in the past on some things, it did not work right here. I don't think it promoted a leak, but it didn't really prevent one either. Because you can hear a little bit of exhaust leak echoing off the curb with this. Doing the other side too. I need more lights. Okay, there it is. Let's get these washers and nuts back on. And I hope that it doesn't leak. My noisy snap-on ratchet. Snap-on ratchet. When tightening exhaust, anything that is flat flange to flat flange always gets tightened first. And then the hangers can get put up. Because this only goes to one position. If it were ball and socket, what you would want to do is kind of get it together loosely. And then get the exhaust hung in position. And you know, where it's supposed to be. Make sure the engine or the transmission and engine and transmission are on their mounts, relaxed where they're supposed to be with ball and socket. Just get everything into position, and then you know, put all the exhaust hangers in, and then tighten the ball and socket last. Because if you tighten that first and then you try and get the exhaust in position, now it's got stress on it, because the ball will go in at any angle. When you tighten it down, it's going to hold that angle. So you want to get it to the angle that it's supposed to be before you tighten it, and then there's less chance of having an exhaust hanger break because it's getting pulled on, or having even worse, an exhaust manifold crack or something because it's getting pulled on. So you want to you always want to pay attention to the order of what should be tightened first. And flat flange to flat flange, since they only go to one position, you know, you pretty much you can tighten them. You can tighten them first, or you can tighten them last, as long as things are going to line up. But anyway, so hopefully this is going to seal. The gaskets fit well, and they seem to have a little bit of crush action with them when tightening it down. I might come back and put another little tweak on these nuts here to you know, once things have kind of settled. Righty-tighty, they say. Oh, there it goes. Well, it uses gotta use a chrome socket. Here it is, chrome 7/8 socket to fit in there. My impacts are too thick to make it in there. Okay, let's see if this fits. I wonder if the threads got a little distorted during welding. So I couldn't thread it in by hand, the O2 sensor. I mean, it might go if I force it with a wrench, but I'd rather, well, oh, darn it, the connector got stuck here. Okay, but I'd rather use a thread chaser made for oxygen sensor holes. I'd rather hit it with that first, make sure if there's any warpage or any issue with the threads. As long as they're close, it should go in and get things cleaned up. If I could get this started anyway. Hard to see with the light facing in my face. Hard to tell if it's going in square or not. Well, all right. Well, put the ratchet on it. Go with the stubby. Maybe not. Nope. No, that's not going in straight. Yeah, just throw it together. That's what everybody thinks. Yeah, just take these parts, bolt them on, and you'll rebuild a whole car in a weekend. No, things don't go that way, ever. I don't care what people see on TV. Everything about cars seems to be a square peg in a round hole, and you got to make it fit. Maybe not everything, but most aftermarket parts are like a square peg in a round hole. Yeah, especially body panels and stuff. Oh my God. Luckily, none of my cars have rust. Oh, wait a minute. I called my channel Scattered Rusty Projects. Darn it. All of my cars have rust. Oh well. Well, this is not going exactly how I'd like it to. Well, after quite a bit of fighting, I finally got this started. Yeah, what an ordeal, you know. It would be nice to have a 18 millimeter by 1.50 tap. That because this thread chaser is not really the best at anything that's deformed more than just a tiny bit. But we're gonna make it work. Well, that was an ordeal, getting those threads straightened out. But it's in there now, and it threads in good. But it was a lot of effort. So the sensor is probably right. You know, it might be just above 45, but it's pretty darn close to 45. And it's a little further away from the seam, that, you know, the possibility of causing some flow turbulence, I don't know, that's just a possibility. But it's more in line with what MSD says you need to do to properly install it. So it's there, and now just gotta button up the rear exhaust hangers and then give it a try. Okay, so the oxygen sensor is relocated and it's running. I started it at first, and it had a little leak up ahead of the exhaust sensor, and it was doing the same thing it was before, where it was surging up and down, and it would bottom out and almost stall, and then it would recover, and so just up and down. So I fixed the exhaust leak, started it again, and it seems to be running pretty smooth. So we'll see how it does on a regular basis. I have a feeling that it was probably exhaust leak around the flanges that would make it intermittently run that way. More because of that than because of the oxygen sensor being in there vertical. I have a feeling the vertical oxygen sensor, or the vertical position, probably didn't have as great effect on making it run erratic as some type of exhaust leak, which would have been right next to the oxygen sensor. The exhaust leak was probably the greater culprit. So tomorrow I'm going to take a long ride down to Connecticut and back, and we'll see how it goes. I'm hoping everything starts running good, or as good as what you would expect with EFI. You know, I could put a carburetor on there and run better, but the problem is when I put this engine together, I said, well, I'm going to run EFI, so I'm not going to bother putting an eccentric in there. So if I have to run an electric fuel pump, I might as well run the EFI as well. So anyway, I think it's about time to head home. You know, being the clock is what, 11 minutes to 11. So yeah, after a week of being COVID positive, it's nice to have a little bit of energy back and work on something for myself. So anyway, I will see you soon. Thanks. Bye. So on a 4-hour drive to Connecticut and back, the day after fixing the oxygen sensor, that little short video of cruising on the highway was all I took, and I wish I would have gotten more, but I didn't. The surging symptom still seems to be there on a restart. It can be dealt with. Hopefully some improvement can be found by changing settings and parameters in the MSD unit itself. But it seemed to have improvement with the amount of emissions the thing blows, because if I had it in the shop before, you couldn't run this car for 30 seconds and it would practically fog you out. Now it seems like the thing can run and it doesn't smell nearly as bad as it used to. I mean, it's not like a new car with catalytic converters and all that stuff where you can leave them running for a while in the shop, but it is better than before. The other thing I noticed is getting on the highway, the tires are terrible on this thing. I mean, they just vibrate, and they're only a couple years old, but I guess they've been sitting around with the weight on them, and even cruising on the highway for that long, they didn't straighten out. I don't know if they need to be rebalanced, but I'm kind of thinking of putting the stock wheels and hubcaps back on the car, then going with the Cougar styled steel wheels. So anyway, well, I hope you liked the video. It was a lot of fun to make, and it got some improvement out of the car as well. We'll see you next time.